Chris, welcome to Carlton. The navy blue looks very good on you. How does it feel?
No, look, it has felt great to be here for the past couple of days, meeting people. It's been a long couple of weeks thinking about actually getting here, and I'm certainly looking forward to the players getting back at some point and re-establishing the staff for 2026.
Many clubs and the AFL reportedly have tried getting you over to Victoria. Our club was able to do that. I guess the obvious, probably first question to start off with is why Carlton?
Some of that has been overstated over time. I've been thankful that the work that I had done at Port Adelaide was regarded reasonably highly, and it felt the right time to leave Port Adelaide, and the opportunity at Carlton was way too good to pass up.
You mentioned at the time in your announcement that you're all in when sort of Graeme presented you with the vision he sort of had for the football club. Can you sort of take us into those discussions that you had with Graeme that ultimately led you to feeling that Carlton was the ideal fit for you to continue your career? Yeah,
it was very much about freshness for a new year. Putting together a program that was going to take the club forward, not just for 2026, but into the future. And with my experience, it certainly felt like the right time, and felt like a great opportunity to be at a club such as this.
We sat down with Graeme last week, and he mentioned you had both worked on some projects together over the years. Can you tell us a bit about your relationship with Graeme?
Yeah, we'd worked together and as competitors, together on different AFL committees that we were fortunate to be a part of, and equally on opposing sides of games on the weekend or deals that have been done between the two clubs that we're at previously. I always felt like we had a good relationship that was built on respect, and I'm thankful that he's given me this opportunity. I'm really looking forward to learning from him into the future as well.
How'd you find Graeme as a competitor, and you're happy you're on the same side now?
Happy to be on the same side, definitely. He was an absolute competitor, and I think that's what all of the people in these roles across the competition have got to have. You've got to be up for the fight. You've still got to love going to game day and wanting to win. That's certainly still my passion, is getting to the weekend and getting the scorecard, getting a check on how you've done in the previous period of time. So from my standpoint, I'm looking forward to that being at Carlton in 2026.
Graeme and Vossi have both described you as a strong leader, an empathetic leader, and someone you don't want to let down. But just from your own sort of words, like, what's your philosophy when it comes to leadership?
Well, I think you've got to be willing to make decisions. Firstly, you've got to be willing to make a call and have people enthused to actually follow. I've been the type of person who's been willing to take positions on things, sometimes lead with my chin when you need to. But I'd also like to think that there's a balance there in making sure that relationships are solid, firstly, in order for people to have trust in you. So, I certainly want to be known as someone who is willing to stand up for what the club believes is the right thing.
You seem to be someone who goes into bat strongly for his people, his football club. Is that something you are really passionate about, and that's how you like to operate?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've had to play that role at numerous points in time, whether that be conversations with the AFL or supporting the people within the organisation. I certainly want to be known as someone who supports the players first and foremostly. That support can come in different versions. Sometimes it needs to be public support. Sometimes it needs to be private. Sometimes it needs to be making sure that people are aware of what my expectations of them are. So there's different views of that. Clearly the public gets one view, but equally I'd like to think that behind the scenes, I'm definitely seen as supportive, but a person with high expectations as well.
I imagine a challenge as a general manager of football is you're leading so many people, and there are a lot of opinions from different people on how to do things that get thrown your way. How do you balance between you're being the one to make the decisions, but then also canvassing the views of those around you?
Well, I think it's important to get people's views. There's no doubt that you want to make sure that you've got a group of staff who are clearly good at their jobs. You don't want to disregard people's opinions, and so it's important that you're able to gather those in a respectful, timely sort of way. But ultimately, the buck does stop with this role on many things, and so you've got to be willing to stand behind whatever decision that you're making at whatever point of time it is.
You officially start on November 1st, but obviously you're currently here. Can you give us a bit of an insight onto what this week involves for you, or what things involve for you between now and your official start on November 1st? Yeah,
so this week has really just been about meeting as many people as I possibly can, whether that be staff or players. My head is spinning, and I'm not good with names at the best of times, so that will be a challenge for me, learning a whole new group of people. But it's been great. The people here have been ultra supportive. I've felt, my family and I have felt like it's going to be a special sort of environment for us to go into, and we're really looking forward to it.
What do you feel is crucial to running a successful football department?
Well, high standards is the first one. We have to make sure that we're lifting standards across the board. Our people want us to be better than what we are. We should be expecting ourselves to be better than what we have been. Importantly for next year, it's going to be about re-establishing some sustainability in our performances, and that's something that's really important to me. I haven't come over here just for 2026. This is about putting a program in place that is going to lead to sustainable performance over time. You need a bit of luck when time comes and you're playing in big games, but equally, we've got to make sure that we're putting together a program that is going to be working at a high level in order for the team to perform better than what it did this year.
How do you lift the standards of a football department across the board?
Well, firstly, I don't really know at this point where I'm going to play the biggest role, but I'm certain that people will know what my expectations are. That having worked with Michael previously, that he'll know what my strengths are. I certainly am aware of his. We'll need to complement each other, and I'm really looking forward to working with the other people involved as well, whether that be our coaching group or high performance staff to work out where I can be of most value.
You worked with Vossy for 7 years at Port Adelaide. You mentioned complementing each other. What are some of the specifics you see in the way that you guys can do that day to day, how you work together?
Yeah, well, look, I knew Michael at Port Adelaide as an assistant coach, so it's going to be really interesting for me to see how he is as a senior coach, and I'm absolutely aware that those are two different things. What I have seen from Michael over his time as both a player and as an assistant coach is that he's an extraordinary leader of people. He's a caring person, but he also has high standards, and so that's something that I'm looking forward to actually leaning into the future and seeing how I can best complement him.
One of the items on the agenda is a number of positions in the coaching department that need to be filled. No doubt you'll both be working together closely on that. Can you take us into some of the discussions around how you are looking to shape the coaching department moving forward?
Well, that's as much about having a look at the group that we've got now and working out what strengths exist in there and maybe what areas we need to think about into the future. Clearly, with the people who have left, we do have an opportunity to reshape that group in some way. We'll take that opportunity to restock the coaching group and look forward to next year.
Another matter of priority coming up, and everyone in football circles is talking about it more so than probably the finals at the moment, but trade period. How involved will you be in the upcoming trade period?
Yeah, it's hard to get away from trade period when most people are interested in it from round one, isn't it? Nick Austin will lead that for this club. We've got Graeme, who has been looking at the program for a period of time, who has a great deal of experience in that area as well. I mean, I'll play whatever role the club needs me to play from here on in, but I'll definitely have a role. What that is to be determined from here.
There seems to be touched on a number of priorities, but as a general manager of football, and you said this week you're meeting a lot of people and the head can spin in your first week in the role, but what are your immediate priorities as the general manager of football at Carlton?
Well, it's to get to know the people. Ultimately, the performance of the team will be a byproduct of the environment that we set, working with people's strengths. What I have seen over time is that a great deal of focus gets put on what clubs don't have instead of thinking about what we do have and working with that. I think that will be something that I can certainly help the group with. But re-establishing what 2026 needs to look like with a whole new group of people. I mean, that will be the reality. Is there is always change. I think freshness for this group will be good. What that ultimately looks like when we're putting it together remains to be seen. But I'm sure that we'll have a group here who is good enough to take the club forward into the future.
Your credentials are well known. 11 years as general manager of football at Port Adelaide, helped lead the Power to 3 of the last 5 prelims. But just curious to know, how did you come to pursue a career as a general manager of football?
Well, I mean, my background from a sporting perspective was cricket. There was a time where I was hoping to play cricket for Australia, and it didn't quite happen, namely because I wasn't good enough. I had some injuries along the way, and when I finished playing cricket, I ended up in Melbourne working in cricket and headed back to South Australia, and the job that I got was with Woodville West Torrens in the SNFL, and so that was the start of my football journey, and have always wanted to try and be as good as I possibly could be at whatever job it was, and fortunate that I was able to land at Port Adelaide for such a long period of time. A club there who probably took a chance on me, to be honest, and I hope I repaid that over 10 years to the point where I've left there with a great deal of good relationships, but also ready for the next step in my own personal career.
What is the biggest part out of your bit over a decade of Port Adelaide that you're looking to take based on all your experience there and bring it into your role now at Carlton?
I think that depth of experience is important. At Port Adelaide, they have gone through different iterations of performance, some sustained performance without quite getting to where that club ultimately wanted to go. And I think all of that will stand me in good stead for the future. Definitely thinking that I'm ready for the next challenge though, and ready for what Carlton has in store for me.
I'm conscious I'm asking you this question only your 3rd day sort of in around the footy club, but your assessment of the playing list and where it currently sits. There's already has been a bit of change since the season finished, but what's your assessment of the current Carlton playing list?
Yeah, I think that injuries play a significant part in performance in many respects. Injuries to your better players has become a key driver in teams' performances. You don't have to look too deeply into the players that we had out this year to think about where our performances could have been better and can be better into the future. I think the list is better than where it performed in 2025, but again, that's from an outside perspective, and there's no what you will know is you'll get no bold sort of declarations from me. Everything that I do will be about how we can do things better from a day-to-day perspective in order to get to where we ultimately want to go. The trade period will be important to that as well.
What do you think we can expect from Carlton heading into next year?
Well, I think that what you can expect from me is that we're going to be driving performance from the minute that the players come back. You can't fast forward to the end of the year in November. You've got to be ready to go. The players have got to have good off seasons, look after themselves where they need to, have a good break, but come back ready to go so that we're not wasting any time. Premierships can't be won in November, but they can certainly be lost. And I think we've got to be well planned. The players have got to come back in good nick. The coaches have got to be ready for when the players come back so that we don't waste any time, because time is of the essence.
Our AFL players are sort of all over the world at the moment, judging by the Instagram feeds, but have you had a chance to touch base with any of them so far?
I mean, fortunately, Instagram's not my thing, so I have no jealousy as to where those players might be at the moment. But look, a number of them have reached out through the last few weeks, and I'm appreciative of that. I've definitely, as I say, I've definitely felt welcomed by both players and staff and people who support the club. So that's been nice for my family and I. Patrick's I've had a couple of discussions with him on the phone. I think I've got a clear understanding of what he thinks is important into the future, and as I say, I really look forward to seeing what role I can play for the group. I'm sure I can be helpful. I've just got to find what areas I can be helpful in.
The AFL team style of play has been really focused on that contest and pressure side of things and winning things at the source and pressuring the opponents. But just interesting seems to be this debate in football circles at the moment, contest versus transition. Like, do you sort of see it that way? What's your thoughts on, I guess, how the game should be played?
I think there's balance in everything, right? My view is that you've got to have a balanced all-round game, and indexing too far into contest or transition, ultimately won't end in the team performing as well as it can be. So I'll definitely be preaching having a balanced all-round game to our coaches. Clearly, there's going to be areas of our game that we're just naturally going to be better at, and contest has been one thing that Carlton has been very good at over time. Certainly, I know is a focus of Michael's, what Michael wants, and that's absolutely fair. My role at this club won't be to get too deep into the strategy outside of challenging it. That's the responsibility of the coaches, and that's something that needs to be really clear. I'm not coming in as any sort of tactical genius. This is about me driving the program overall, and the coaches coming up with a game plan that's going to be sustainable and lead the team to greater success maybe than what we showed in 2025.
Is that the focus heading into the trade and draft from an acquisition standpoint, is adding players who will complement what we have currently and ultimately lead to a more balanced sort of game style across the field?
Look, I'm sure, again, I'd say that Nick and the recruiting guys will lead that through that next period of time. I've got a view from the outside that certainly we can lift standards in a number of areas, and we've got to try and do that through the trade and draft period.
You've had a chance to see Carlton from afar. What are your observations of the football club before you come in and started wearing navy blue?
Well, I've known the club for a long time because I supported it before I worked at Port Adelaide, and so a big club, amazing history. Some of the biggest figures in the game have come from this club. The history of the game have come from this club, and I know it's a supporter base who want better, and I understand that, and have high expectations of our team, and hopefully I can play a role in driving some of that performance into the future.
Just zooming out for a bit, how does it make you feel, like sitting here in the navy blue with the monogram on you? We're doing this interview at Icon Park, where the football club has lived for so long. Like, what does it mean to you to be sitting here as the Carlton General Manager of football?
It feels great. You can't deny that. Coming from South Australia with, at a time where Carlton had a number of young South Australian players who came over, that was really the the start of my support of the club, and having come to plenty of games here as a young person growing up. It's fantastic to be here, but equally, I've got a job to do now, and that's the reality. It's the romance of being here is fantastic, and that I'm sure will sustain me for the short term. But what I do know is that the sustenance in the long term will come from the team being better, and I'm definitely looking forward to being part of that.
Just from a fan perspective, who's your favourite Carlton player of all time?
Well, I supported Carlton because Peter Motley came. So Peter Motley I was his third supporter in South Australia, and when Motts came over to Carlton, that was the reason why I started to support Carlton at the time. Craig Bradley, probably Stephen Kernahan, those guys were amazing players to watch back in the day. I loved Lance Whitnell, the sort of cultish figures over time as well. But if I had to pick one, it'd probably be Braddles.
Nice. I don't think you get too much debates on that pick, Chris. Just from a football department perspective as well, AFLW, Ash Nolte is our head of AFLW. How involved will you be with the AFLW program?
Well, I'll definitely have an involvement. It's been fantastic to see the team this year performing the way that they have so far. Look, I'm definitely going to have a role. This position. The AFLW program ultimately reports into the head of football role. So again, it's a program that looks from on the surface has taken a step forward this year, and whatever role I can play into the future, I definitely will.
How important is it for you to have that integration within the programs? I guess when this facility was first built a number of years ago, it was built with that integration in mind: expansive gym, indoor field, the training field and such. How important is that integration for you?
Well, it ultimately will lead to the club feeling far better about itself. Integration across the board is a good thing. From my perspective, it's something that I want to continue to support. I've been a big supporter of the W program at Port Adelaide, and people getting the opportunity to be part of the men's program as well back in Adelaide. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to also be involved in the W program here.
Nice. And just a final one, Chris, and probably a fitting way to send off, what would be there's a lot of Carlton members and supporters watching this, what would be your message to the Carlton members and supporters?
Well, I think it's as much about what they should see from me. They should see a person who is going to work hard for them, who is going to want the best for the club into the future. Who's going to be willing to have hard conversations, to be responsible for driving the team's performance. Ultimately, I want them to be proud of their club, and I think they can be. And 2026 needs to be the first step towards being successful as a team again. The AFL competition, and AFLW for that matter, is full of fine margins. You've seen teams who have performed well during a minor round, fall out of the AFL finals. Equally, you've seen teams who are going well at the end of the year, really, like Brisbane did last year, get on a roll. And I think from my perspective, we want the team to be performing better, but I think they should want me to help drive that performance.
Nice. Well, on behalf of all the Carlton family, Chris, welcome. It's great to see you in navy blue, and all the best with leading the football department moving forward.
Thanks very much.